Let's take a break. Coffee break, that is. Hora del cafecito.
Welcome to another coffee break where we're able to learn, discuss, and discover various topics. I'm glad you're able to join me on your coffee break today. So grab yourself a hot cup of coffee, a cold cup of coffee, or a cup of tea, and have a seat. On today's topic, we'll be looking at decision-making skills, or how to make good decisions. So let's jump right into it, because it's definitely one of those topics that can be brain numbing, and we'll try to fit it in the time allotted. So let's jump right in and understand that, we all have to make decisions on a daily basis, right? We're all making decisions every day, and some of these decisions can be pretty straight up, very straightforward, and very simple. Or some of your decisions can definitely be quite complex. And of course, depending on your position, depending on where you sit at the table, that those decisions can definitely vary. But a simple decision can be deciding whether or not your monthly report is ready to be sent to your superior or to your supervisor, right? And a very complex decision can involve a hiring process, right? Which one of these candidates best fills the position that we are looking to fill? And simple decisions usually require a simple decision-making process, but by the same token, difficult decisions will require a more involved process. And especially because of the fact that there's many issues that are intertwined and interrelated. For instance, there's uncertainty, right? There's a lot of facts that may not be known about what you're about to make a decision on. The complexity of the decision, right? You have to consider a lot of interrelated factors. There might be some high-risk consequences, right? And these are going to be the impacts of your decision, and they could definitely be significant for the team or for the organization. You always want to, of course, consider alternatives, but understand that each of these alternatives will also have its own set of uncertainties and consequences. And the hardest part of anything that we do as humans is the fact that there are going to be, let me repeat that, there are going to be interpersonal issues, and it's very difficult to predict how people are going to react to your decision. So with these difficulties in mind, right, you have uncertainties, the level of complexities, the high-risk consequences, and your alternatives, and your interpersonal issues. With these difficulties in mind, that the best way to make a complex decision is to use a effective process, a clear process that will lead you to usually having a very consistent, high quality result, and that it's something that can definitely improve the quality of almost everything that you do. So hopefully what I'll share with you will give you an opportunity to outline a process that will help improve the quality of your decisions. And again, it's important that you do have a process. So systemic approach to decision making is a approach that is logical and that will help you address the critical elements that will result in good decisions. And by taking an organized approach, okay, and you want to make sure that you're very organized in your process and step by step moving it forward, that you're less likely to miss some very important factors, and that you can build on your approach to make your decisions better and better the more you use it and the more you practice using it. So make sure that there are some definite steps that you can use to make an effective decision. So these are progressive. So I think step number one would be to create a what's called a constructive environment, right? You want to make sure that you create a constructive environment for successful decision making by doing some very intrinsic things within that, right? So you want to make sure that you establish your objective, right? Define exactly what it is that you want to achieve, right? You want to be very clear on what what you want to achieve. You want to make sure that from the get-go that you agree on the process, whether it's with your team or the organization as a whole, right? Who will make the final decision? Will the responsibility lie on individual, or will it lie on a team, right? So be very clear on that process. Make sure that you are involving the right people, right? Make sure that you are involving the stakeholders, because it's very important that the decision that you'll be making is going to impact a certain group, right? But if you don't involve the group that's going to be impacted, then the possibility of you coming up with the best possible decision are going to be lower. So you want to ensure that you've consulted all of the stakeholders appropriately, and even if it's you that's going to make the final decision as an individual, right? So involve the group in this process, and it's very appropriate at any one point in order for you to make the final decision. And it's typically a group of 5 to 7 people, but it definitely has to be representative of all of the stakeholders that are going to be impacted, right? Make sure that you are allowing for opinions to be heard. You want to encourage the participants as part of this process to get involved in the discussion, with the debate, and to analyze whether or not the decision you're going to make is going to have a positive impact or a negative impact, etc. But that they're allowed to share without the fear of rejection from the group, or the fear of any type of reprisal. And make sure that you are also asking the right questions. And I think you always want to make sure that you're asking yourself whether this is really the issue, right? So in order for you to discover that is perhaps using a technique called the 5 whys. And this is definitely a classic tool that I'm sure you've either heard of or have been made aware of. If not, Google it, the 5 whys. And this is one of those classic tools that will help you identify the real underlying problem that you're faced with. And also make sure that you're using creativity tools from the start, right? And being creative from the get-go allows you to inject thinking from various perspectives, right? So that's a little bit long and drawn out, but perhaps not enough time on this stage. But it's creating a constructive environment. Number 1. Number 2, you want to make sure that you generate good alternatives, right? You want to make sure that you allow yourself to be able to make an effective decision that you have more options that you're able to consider, right? So when you generate alternatives, you basically force yourself to dig a little bit deeper and look at the problem from different angles, from different perspectives. And it's important that that if you use this mindset, that there's other solutions out there that you're more likely to make better, the best decisions possible. Make sure that you are generating ideas, and by generating ideas, you're also using some sort of a process there, right? A brainstorming process, and depending on the work that you're doing, you might have been exposed to different types of process, but it can be, the most simple is brainstorming, right? Using web, or reverse brainstorming, or something called the charrette procedure, or the Crawford slip writing technique. So make sure that you're, in generating ideas, that you're being creative in the process that you're using for that as well. Make sure that you're considering different perspectives, and that you're using a process that allows you to consider different perspectives, and make sure that you are organizing your ideas. And this is especially helpful when you have a large number of ideas, and sometimes separate ideas can be combined into one comprehensive alternative. It might have been stated differently by a person, an individual, or a group, but the intent, or what they meant, could be very similar to what another idea was thought of and intended to mean. Right? So make sure that you lump your ideas together, so you have a process for organizing your ideas. Once you have gathered and generated some good alternatives, you want to make sure that you are exploring those alternatives, right? That once you feel that you have a good selection of realistic alternatives, you're going to need to evaluate these for their feasibility, for their risks, and for their implications of these decisions individually, and make sure that in considering risk, that you are creative in using some sort of a risk analysis, right? In considering implications, you want to make sure that you are looking at different ways that your options are going to have a potential consequence for each of those alternatives, right? And then make sure that you are also looking for validation, right? You're going to determine if your resources are adequate, if your solution matches your objective, and if the solution itself is likely to work in the long term, which is very important. And I think another step, and this might be step number 4, would be to choose your best alternative, right? After you've evaluated your alternatives, the next is to choose between them. The choice may be obvious or not, right? It can be complicated in itself. So make sure that you have some sort of a decision-making matrix, that you are comparing or using some sort of a comparison analysis. You're using maybe a decision tree, or you're using something called if my memory serves, right, the Delphi technique, right? And then, of course, next step after that is checking your decision with all of your effort, with all of your hard work that went into evaluating your alternatives. Now you need to decide what's the best way to move forward. Making the decision, right? So make sure, when you're checking your decision, you want to make sure that your process has been thorough. You want to ensure that you have eliminated any errors in your decision-making process, and that now that you're taking the intuitive step to communicate your decision, which is the final step. And the final step is to communicate your decision and move to action. So once you've made your decision, it's important to explain it to the stakeholders, or to the ones impacted, right? Whether it's your team or your organization as a whole, and especially those who were going to be affected by it, and implement it. Right? Talk about why you chose the alternative you did, And the more information that you provide about the risks and the projected benefits, the more likely people are going to support your decision, because they're able to analyze it on their own and see the benefit for the long term, right? And it's important to ensure that this will work for the long term. So with that being said, I know that it's a lot of information to be able to consume in such a very short period of time. But again, in a good decision-making process, you have to make sure that you have a systemic approach to decision-making. I gave you 6 steps in making the best possible decisions, or the most effective decisions. Number 1, creating a constructive environment. Number 2, generating good alternatives. And number 3, exploring those alternatives, right? Vetting those alternatives. Number 4, choosing the best alternative. Number 5, checking your decision. And number 6, communicating your decision and taking action. And it's important that you follow this progressive model in order for you to be able to use this systemic approach for the best possible decision-making process. The more you practice it, the easier it becomes. It can definitely be overwhelming in thinking about, okay, well, there's truly a lot that goes into this. But once you become creative in researching the tools for some of these steps, that you'll definitely become a more effective decision maker. With that being said, that's it for today's coffee break. So make sure you go like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video. So get back to work or whatever it is that you are doing, and we'll see you on the next coffee break. Should you want a workshop on this topic, feel free to get at me. Thanks.